Hello, and welcome to Gifted Underachievers, podcasts for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, James and I discuss the two experiments we've been running, one for grant applications and one for contests. Learn the pros, cons, and hidden factors that have influenced our frankly terrible results. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, Pat.
Yes, James.
Well, I'm down here in the Gifted Underachievers lab.
Oh, the lab.
Working
Hi.
through, we're planning on, reviewing some of our experiments here to see what we have learned, not just from the experiments individually, but collectively as a whole.
I'm on my way down. Can you hear my footsteps on the stairs?
Yes, I hear you, and I hear you approaching the door. Let me unlock the air chamber.
Hey, nice to see you.
All right. Here you are.
Yeah.
And you forgot your lab coat and safety glasses.
I did. Is this a rubber glove thing too, or should I leave those?
Yeah. No, all the dangerous chemicals have been put away.
Yes. Okay. So we're talking about, for context, if anybody is not aware of our grants, we have had a series of grants experiments beginning in early 2024. And so a series of experiments. Our first one was on applying for grants with the intent of seeing whether we could make creative grants an income stream.
Right.
The grant experiment is actually ongoing. However, there's been issues. The second experiment was to see if we could use entering contests as a way to A, gain exposure, I guess, B, maybe win some money or a publication deal, and C, use work that we had already written that, we didn't have to create a lot of new material like we did for the grants.
Yeah. Get out in front of an audience, an already collected audience by, the literary journal or the publisher or what have you.
Right. So, yeah. So that's just the two that we've had, and then we're about to start a third one. And
yeah.
Amazingly. We've learned some stuff. So do you want to run down what you think?
Yeah, we're looking at a very high level here. And so for grants, neither one of us was able to turn it into a revenue stream at all.
Yeah.
Though Pat did have a very good response to one of her grant applications where it was approved, but the amount of funding ran out before they got to her.
Yeah.
And then in the contest, another mixed result. I was named a finalist for one, but this is still ongoing as well. And so there's a lot of yet to be returned results. And so, but one of the things that we're kind of realizing is from the grants perspective, big gatekeeping, a lot of work, and a very tiny audience, because the audience is the grant committee.
Yeah, the grant jury, sometimes they're called boards, sometimes they're called juries, but it's, I don't know how, different grants have different size of juries. Richard Kelly Kemet could probably tell us more, but I'm picturing maybe 10 people. So there's the administrators who forward all the grant applications, and then there is the creative people in your industry who review them, or if for something like, say, McDowell Colony or something, it's the board, I would imagine. So yes, it's a small, unknown audience, and there is a lot of work required because there's a lot of new writing required. Each grant is offered by a different organization. You have to understand their values, their mission. Who did they award previous money to? And then they've got a pretty big element where you describe your project in detail. You often have to have an artistic statement. It has to mesh with the organization's values. So even if you've got these bare bones of everything you need, you still have to do quite a lot of work to get it in shape to apply by deadline. You have to, in our case, to get a grant for creative writing, you also have to have a sample of your writing, of the project that you're describing. So all the stars have to align. And then it goes to this unknown audience of an unknown and small audience of gatekeepers, and nothing wrong with that term. We're not using it
this
as a pejorative. It's just reality of people who, assess your application. And then your yes or no is, we've never had a yes, so we can't actually say.
Well, you did.
Yeah, but it came with no money, so it was like a
Came with
no.
no money.
So the no is sans explanation. There's no real feedback. Although I did actually, here in Canada, there is the potential to get feedback on your application for some of these grants.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the other piece of the two things that I would add are often too, you need a reference.
True.
And so that is outside of your self, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to find up to two, maybe three people, depending. And who you select as a reference is a huge deal.
It matters.
They're going to carry a lot of weight. And so that's hard to do. Then you have to ask somebody who's also really, really busy, hey, can you spend some time on me? That's not going to be compensated.
Yeah.
And then the other is the obvious here in the US, they've all been canceled from the federal government. Trump has done a very good job of taking us to war and removing arts funding. So, so that's been a big block.
So then the contests, it's less work because you're sending in writing you've already done, or I have never written anything for a contest. I guess if you're a flash fiction writer, you could, but I write mostly novels and novellas. So it's less work in a way. The gatekeeping aspect is slightly different because the contest judges are the mediators. They are picking material based on whatever the contest sponsor's audience is. So let's say it's, I don't know.
The Great Gutsy Chapter 1 prize, for example.
Is that real?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Shit.
So, So, I mean, what I would say for these contests is the ones that I focused on were more around short stories because that's sort of my area. And the ones that Pat focused on, I think, are more book level. Is that full manuscript? And so I think for either, though, you really have two audiences that you kind of have to navigate, and you have to get through the first audience, which is the gatekeeper audience, to get
The judges.
to the ultimate audience.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The people are going to judge, winners and finalists. And often, the winner gets some sort of cash prize and publication, and finalists sometimes get published. I would say often get published. So that gives you access to this broader audience to get your work out into the world.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit tricky trying to navigate, the first gatekeeping judging audience. You're not entirely, often they'll sort of say we have this one judge who's sort of celebrity judge, but there's a lot of weeding out that goes before anything gets to that person.
Yeah.
So you don't really know who the judges are. You're trying to write for one audience while also trying to get to another audience and trying to bring what it is that you want to create, what you want to say intact ultimately to that final audience.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of that trick of meeting what whoever's hosting the contest is looking for and what might resonate, with just readers generally for them.
Yeah. And I would say literary journals, God rest them, RIP. Their readership is, I don't know, not very big, I would say, because there's so many of them. There's thousands of them. And so it's whoever the judge is for a literary journal, you're going to go through the editorial staff probably. They're going to do a short list or, like weed it out so the judge isn't reading for 9 years to pick a contest winner. Right. And then the story's ultimately going to go out to whoever reads that journal. And then it's over, right? You might get, you might be able to interest somebody in doing it as part of a collection or something like that. As far as, there's also organizations like the Historical Novel Society that do Outstanding First Novel Award. And so that's a very specific thing. You get a cash prize, you get, I think you get read by a couple high profile agents, and then they can offer you representation or not. So there's, there's more than, it's more of a broad audience that, people who read historical fiction, well, they tend to like their periods, so people who love Edwardian fiction, bodice rippers and stuff, they'll read that. They'll read a lot of that, but they're not constantly reading through different time periods. That's, just generalizing. here. So you can appeal on different grounds than to a very niche literary journal that has, I don't know, maybe sells 300 copies a month. You're dealing with a bigger organization. You've got more of a broad canvas because it just has to be historical fiction. The judges are not judging whether, they don't have their own publishing arms, so they're not in the same position as having to publish the book. They simply connect the winners and sometimes the finalists with the means of publication, and then ultimately an audience. But you're right. It is there is a mediator, which or gatekeeper, which is the contest judges.
Yeah, I would position it more as a intermediating layer.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
in the audience that it has to meet that first group's approval to be able to ultimately get to the audience. And I think for both of these, one, for the grants, we were looking for an income stream, but really the income stream was so that we could get our work out to an audience, right?
Yeah.
And that's readers for us.
Yeah.
And so the whole sort of point of this is reaching regular old people.
For sure.
And it's not easy, is I think what we're finding.
Well, granted, I agree there. I would also say that the secondary and might even be the primary point of these is not just the money, not just reaching an ultimate reader, but also the fact that if you can add to your CV this grant, that contest, this grant, that contest, then you are now eligible for better opportunities in things like high-profile writing residencies. You're more eligible as just a teacher at some, European retreat for novice writers with money. So there's all these side benefits that are probably more. I don't want to say more tangible than an ultimate unknown reader, or in the case of a literary journal, a known reader. So there's that aspect of it too.
There's definitely multiple benefits that you can reach,
which we've seen none of because we suck at it.
Yeah, we were terrible. And so summary grants, big gatekeepers, lots of work, small audience that you can't know.
Yeah.
Contests, sort of big gatekeepers, larger audience because you're trying to reach a larger audience, less work because it's material you've already created that is part of the thing that you do.
Yeah.
This brings us to our third experiment.
Yeah.
Which we're calling the Pension Project Experiment, PPE.
Yeah. PPE.
I like it. Yeah.
Personal protective eyewear.
Yeah, it rolls. I know it's well named for the lab here. And really what we're talking about is coming up with our own project that helps grow an audience for what we're doing, that helps bring in some income, even if it's modest, helps us increase the size of our platform, and does so by removing the gatekeepers and without creating a massive amount of new work.
Yes, of new non-usable work, because the thing I find with the grant stuff is it's new work, but it's only really usable again, with tweaks and stuff for grant applications. You can use an artist statement, I guess, if you like, I don't know, do something. But what I like about the so-called pension projects is that they are evergreen because you create it, you have ultimate autonomy and agency. I would say they are more work than writing a grant because until it is in the reader's hands, there are a lot of intervening tasks and hours spent and all that. So I'd say that this is the top amount of work. You define the audience. That to me is the cool part, because you're designing the project, and let's call work for, in our case, it's books, right? You define the audience, you define the topic. There's no I shouldn't call it jumping through hoops, but there's no jumping through hoops except the ones you set for yourself. And so to me, the question then becomes, how do you develop the project into something your audience wants? And then how do you connect with the audience? And those are both things that we've done our entire working lives, basically, because we run small creative businesses. So you're always designing your shit and figuring out, where
Right.
your
Yeah,
pipeline is. All of that is normal work to us. And so although writing a book is not like it's no work, it's work that, we're both familiar with. And I think the fact that there's no gatekeepers except the audience ultimately, everything depends on you, how well you define them, how well you market your work, how creative you can be about that stuff. Then to me, it's just kind of, it's more evergreen, because once you write and publish a book, it's out there until you pull it down.
Yep. And so we haven't decided specifically what it is, but it's going to be something that we collaborate on.
Yeah, we're going to do a collaboration.
Yeah. And and this is all part of trying to make it as light a lift as possible, but also being effective.
Yeah.
And so the things that I'm excited about are, one, the collaboration, because it's, instead of being on your own trying to figure it out, we're going to be bouncing ideas back and forth.
Yeah.
And two is the defining and finding and connecting with an audience.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
In a sense, we're taking on that role of gatekeeper. And so that's going to be really, I think there's going to be a lot learned there, and we're bringing a lot of, as you said, experience to that. So it's, we're not starting cold by any stretch. But I think that's going to be for me interesting, and the potential to really find some new strategies and ideas and concepts that can be applied elsewhere too.
Me too.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep, we're going to be starting that in July of this year, 2026.
Yeah.
And we will be posting our 36-hour marathon content development meeting. Pat, you look disappointed in me.
I'm just sighing with ennui at the thought of the entire
You don't think
thought.
that makes good podcasting?
No, the thought of listening to somebody figure their shit out is not at all interesting. We're not doing that. If anybody's wondering, we're not doing it.
So Pat and I have long ago agreed that if one of us is not having fun or doesn't like something, it does not go out.
Yeah.
It sits in a file that we have, break glass in case of emergency.
Yeah. Until both of us like it.
Yeah, until we get desperate enough that we both like it.
Okay, I'm excited. Yeah. I think we've come to some realizations as far as what it means to anybody else. There's just this awareness, right? That there's an audience for everything, every single thing you do, whether you're applying for a grant, entering a contest, and sometimes thinking about who is the audience, how many layers of audience are there, and can you be fairly businesslike about finding out as much as you can about who the material is going to end up with. That will, take away maybe some of this sort of angst around, for me, grant experiments. I don't feel the angst with contests because I'm not having to write about myself. But with the grants, just treating it like another gig is really helpful.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to come up with our, to sort of Frankenstein together our ideal individual audience person. What do they look like, think like, what do they want to do? Oh,
that's what we're doing, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fun.
All right.
Okay, stay tuned.
Thanks so much for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Hope you have a great creative week.